Today we're looking at the Australian magpie, and guess what? In my book of Australia's dangerous creatures, it's got the magpie. Let's check this creature out. Today we're looking at the Australian magpie. Now it's interesting because the magpie to me looks a bit like a raven with white patches. I always thought it was part of the crow family, but when I have a look at my Tasmanian Birds book, it actually says here that it's essentially a ground feeding butcher bird. So it's in the butcher bird currawong family, and so that's probably my new revelation for the day. Now apart from the bird book, I have this book here, Australia's Dangerous Creatures, and the magpie is in this book as well. So it's in this book because it swoops people, it attacks people, it dive bombs on them. There's been a case of somebody's actually got a beak in the eye, and there's an interesting picture here of all these school kids walking along with ice cream containers on their head because of how ferocious these guys get. The other thing I found interesting in reading about this is back in the day, in the early 20th century, they were very gender specific. They would only attack little boys, not so much little girls. Boys would throw rocks and sticks at these birds. These guys live about 15 years. They have a memory, and so men and boys would get attacked, whereas girls wouldn't. These days, because the clothing that people wear is pretty similar, so now ladies wearing trousers are also on the target of these guys. They'll come down and they'll swoop and they'll hit and attack people.
Recently Bill and I were visiting my parents' place in Croydon, Sydney, and in their backyard there was a family of magpies, and while Bill was relaxing and sketching we heard their call. The magpie's call is known as chortling, and it's one of Australia's most iconic sounds.
Okay, so I'm going to touch up these magpie pictures with the Simpson and Day Field Guide to Aussie Birds. And this is just giving a bit more detail, a bit more colour guide. Not there's much colour in these guys, but here we go, let's touch her up. Here's another interesting story from Australia's Dangerous Creatures. And this is a push bike rider. Now the cyclist was attacked, and it was a girl, and she tumbled from her bike into speeding traffic and was lucky not to get hit. Crikey, that's like attempted murder, isn't it? This is like something out of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. I guess you don't want to mess with a magpie. Okay, so that's the Australian magpie. So even in Australia, the birds are going to get you. Check you next time.